For Complex News, I'm Hanuman Welch. Cults in Los Angeles go hand in hand. The long history of cults, starting in the Sunshine State, date back to the middle of the 20th century, most famously with the Manson family, which is getting the Quentin Tarantino treatment this summer, thanks to the release of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This past June in Los Angeles, Joaquin Garcia, the leader of the Mexican-based church La Luz del Mundo, was scheduled to be arraigned on charges both long and disturbing. Among them, rape of a minor, extortion, and human trafficking. La Luz is the largest evangelical church in Mexico and the second largest religious body in the country, just behind, you guessed it, the Roman Catholic Church. And its followers aren't just in Mexico. Between 1 and 5 million members worldwide and dozens of churches in Southern California, all are among its numbers. And Joaquin Garcia isn't just the leader of La Luz del Mundo. Followers of the fundamentalist Christian group believe that the man is a literal living apostle of Jesus Christ, like his father and his grandfather before him. Unlike Jesus, however, Joaquin Garcia is currently being held on $50 million bail. Prosecutors say Joaquin Garcia and 3 female co-defendants coerced underage victims into performing sex acts by telling them that if they defied Garcia's advances as the, quote, apostle, they were defying God. Oh, they also have ties to organized crime and cartels in Mexico, so you've got that going for them as well. And of course, we can't talk about cults in Southern California without Heaven's Gate, the famous San Diego cult led by Marshall Applewhite, who convinced 39 people to commit mass suicide in 1997 so they could, wait for this, all be transported to another galaxy on the passing tail of the comet Hale-Bopp, and, in the process, turn the black and white Nike Decades into a dead stock collector's item in the process. Interestingly enough, Lil Uzi Vert has also used some of the Heaven's Gate imagery to promote his long-in-the-making album, Eternal Atake. Yes, cults are a massive influence on pop culture, which brings us to the latest cult to make front-page headlines, NXIVM. Now, NXIVM has already been allegedly involved with everything from human trafficking, branding its members with hot irons, and domestic slavery. The cult's founder, Keith Rainier, was arrested and charged with sex trafficking for his role in the group, which then set off a domino effect. In the ensuing months, federal prosecutors would go on to charge more and more people for their alleged involvement, some of whom have now begun to plead guilty. That includes Smallville actress Allison Mack. Just this week, Rainier was found guilty on all charges after NXIVM jurors were shown 18 pornographic images of underage girls prosecutors claim were taken by the cult leader Rainier. It was the first time they had seen the images of the girl who was allegedly 15 at the time, and many of the men and women were unable to look at times during the trial, choosing to turn their heads and avert their eyes. So what the hell was NXIVM anyway, and how did this alleged Hollywood sex cult gain as much traction as it did? NXIVM was an organization that allegedly brainwashed and blackmailed women into being sex slaves, all under the guise of self-help. The picture painted of NXIVM is brutal from the jump. The group operated under a purported self-help organization, but was actually instead a front for a sex cult that branded numerous female members with Rainier's initials, and then coerced them into a, quote, master and slave relationship. Co-founder Nancy Salzman admitted in court that she tracked and monitored women within NXIVM. Nancy Salzman was also the first person involved in the case to plead guilty for her single charge of racketeering conspiracy, to which she confessed on March 13 that she tracked and monitored the usernames and passwords of suspected moles within the group to ensure they weren't leaking details about the group's inner workings. She also admitted that she ordered others to destroy videotapes that documented Rainier's self-help teachings. Nancy Salzman's daughter Lauren admitted to keeping a woman as a slave. On April 2nd, Lauren Salzman pled guilty to 1 count of racketeering conspiracy, revealing that she had, quote, knowingly and intentionally harbored an unnamed woman in a locked room from March 2010 to April 2012, just over 2 years, when the woman did not complete requested labor. Salzman confessed that she threatened to deport her back to Mexico. If that wasn't f***ed up enough, Rainier ran a separate subgroup inside NXIVM, a secret order known as DOS, or the Vow, that functioned like a cult with Rainier at its head. Mac was part of the inner DOS group, and she pled guilty in April to various charges to avoid trial. Witnesses in court testified that they were blackmailed into silence after being asked to turn damaging personal information over to their masters. Prosecutors also convicted Rainier of having had a sexual relationship with at least 1 other child and of possessing child pornography between 2005 and 2018, and reportedly had a den in Salzman's upstate New York house where he had sex with some of his slaves in a custom sex dungeon, complete with an elevated bed that hovered just above a hot tub. Now, those latest details come courtesy of the testimony of NXIVM member Mark Vicente. Seagram's Gym, yeah, that's Seagram's, the heiress to that fortune, Claire Bronfman, also admitted to harboring an undocumented individual and helping Rainier use a dead woman's credit card. Earlier this year, Bronfman pled guilty to conspiracy to concealing and harboring an illegal alien for financial gain, as well as fraudulent use of identification. That's according to The Guardian. According to prosecutors, Bronfman used her immense wealth to bankroll NXIVM activities. After 6 weeks of testimony, the jurors reached their verdict in 4 hours of deliberation. During closing arguments on Monday, Assistant U.S. Attorney Moira Penza told the Brooklyn federal court, "The strict but carefully constructed image of Rainier's inner circle made for him a humanitarian, leader, mentor, and guru. You saw him for what he was, a con man, a predator, and a crime boss. Rainier tapped into a never-ending flow of women and money, a crime boss with no limits and no checks on his power." Mark Agnifilo, Rainier's attorney, argued that while the evidence presented during the case substantiated his repulsive, disgusting, and offensive nature, it wasn't enough, wait for it, to prove he did anything illegal. "We don't convict people in this country for being repulsive and offensive. Disgusting lifestyles aren't criminal. He's not mighty, he's not great, he's not godlike. He's none of those things. He sits there and creates curriculum." After the verdict was delivered, Catherine Oxenberg, a mother of one of the victims, simply told reporters, "He's done. All." Rainier's ex-girlfriend and former NXIVM member Barbara Boucher wept outside of the courtroom as she was consoled by Agnifilo, who said, "Congratulations, I hope this helps." Smallville actress Allison Mack initially entered a plea of not guilty after being arrested in connection to the ring last year. Back in April, Mack was accused of being a high-level official in DOS, and she changed her plea to guilty and currently faces up to 40 years in prison. The 36-year-old Mack tearfully told the court, "I have come to the conclusion that I must take full responsibility for my conduct, and that is why I am pleading guilty today. I'm very sorry for my role in this case. I'm very sorry to my family and to the good people I hurt through my misguided adherence to Keith Rainier's teachings." So that is just a quick primer on NXIVM, the deranged Hollywood sex cult that now joins Heaven's Gate and the Manson family as some of California's most notorious cults. Let us know what you think about the trial in the comments below, and for everything else, subscribe to Complex on YouTube. For Complex News, I'm Hanuman Welch.